Okay, I'm going to get started by just welcoming everyone. Welcome to Watang Yu. Nice to see everyone here. Sawadee Kap. Welcome to everyone who's joining us online as well. Today is actually the third day of a 5-day course that I'm teaching. And I know that some of you guys might just be here for the morning, and that's completely fine because we have regular classes that happen on Sunday, Wednesday, and Saturday. And when we're teaching courses and retreats and things like this, we just invite everybody in to come join if you'd like. You can stay for as long as you like or short as you like. It's really up to you. What I do is I start with meditation to guide you in a meditation session, and then afterwards I'm going to move into a talk on understanding the 3 poisons of craving, anger, and ignorance. This is where you're going to understand the problems that the Buddha discovered in the mind from a high level and the solutions as well. Because what the Buddha did is he figured out how to get to enlightenment, where the mind's completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy, where you're training your mind to get to the point where you're eliminating the causes and conditions that are producing feelings such as anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All these feelings and others are eliminated from the mind when you train it to get to this enlightened mental state. Oftentimes people think that it's the outside world that is causing you to experience anger or frustration or any of these other discontent feelings. But what you're going to be able to learn today is how your own mind is causing these feelings, and this is why you can actually eliminate them. None of the teachings of the Buddha are based in belief. You're actually learning, examining, and investigating teachings. You're reflecting on them to independently verify whether they're true or they're false, and then you're practicing his teachings, integrating them into your day-to-day life in order to train the mind and get to this enlightened mental state. There aren't any rites, rituals, ceremonies, or worship in the teachings of the Buddha. If you've been exposed to those kinds of things and told that they were Buddhism, it's actually not from the Buddha. These are changes that people have made to his teachings since his death, and he warned us that it would be unwise to change his teachings. But because he lived over 2,500 years ago, there's people that have either inadvertently changed his teachings or overtly changed his teachings. And what we do here is we base everything that we share based on the original words of the Buddha. So I'm going to invite you guys to join for a meditation session, and then afterwards I'm going to teach you this topic of the 3 poisons and helping you understand what they are and how to eliminate them out of the mind, because this is what's going to produce the enlightened mental state when you eliminate these out of the mind. So if you'd like to join for the meditation, the way that I start this is I start with some chanting to ease us into the meditation, and you guys are welcome to join along in the chanting if you like. They're on a laminated sheet over there on the cabinet. You're welcome to help yourself and get a laminated sheet, and you can chant along if you like. If you get one of these, you're going to see what we're actually chanting. And for those of you guys that are online, if you would like to get access to these, you can go to our website of buddhadailywisdom.com, click on free books, and then you scroll down towards the bottom and you'll see the daily chanting sheet there. So these chants during the lifetime of the Buddha, the way that he used chanting is he used it as a learning tool, that every 2 weeks his students would come together and they would recite his teachings orally, because everything he taught was oral. So they just used chanting as a way to commit the teachings to memory and to be able to remember the teachings so that they could actually practice the teachings. So there isn't any rites, rituals, ceremonies, or worship in the teachings of the Buddha. There isn't any prayer. So these chants aren't that. Instead, during the lifetime of the Buddha, they just used it as a learning tool or as a learning device. Today, we don't need to chant in order to remember the teachings. We have books and audiobooks and videos and podcasts and things like this that we can study in order to commit the teachings to memory. But I still chant because it helps to ease the mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. If you read the English translations, you're going to see a lot of appreciation, gratitude, and respect for the Buddha. And because of this, I don't think the Buddha even created these chants. They were probably created by his students, either during his life or after his death. Because an individual who's enlightened or in a Buddha doesn't walk around and say, here, chant these chants to me out of respect for me. This would be ego or arrogance. This would be putting yourself above other people. An individual who's enlightened, a Buddha, they just see themselves as just like everyone else, that we're all equal. Nobody's above anybody. Nobody's below anybody. We're all equal. But the unenlightened mind is going to look for this pecking order and think that you're above people or below people. But instead, you can just think about everybody as equal. That's the way an enlightened being thinks, is that they're just equal to everybody else. So I know that the Buddha wouldn't have created these chants because there's so much appreciation, gratitude, and respect for him in these chants, and he wouldn't have instructed people to chant these things to him. But if you learn from a teacher how to move from the anger and the sadness and frustration and all those other discontent feelings to the peaceful and joyful mental state of enlightenment, and this teacher didn't want anything or expect anything from you, they were just helping you out of the kindness of their heart, you'd probably have a lot of respect and gratitude for that person too. So that's where I suspect these came from, is his students, either during his life or after his death. So I'm going to chant these on the way into meditation, and you guys are welcome to join along in the chanting if you'd like. Then after the chanting, I'm going to be providing some guidance where I'm going to be essentially instructing you how to meditate while we're actually meditating, essentially teaching you how to meditate while we're actually meditating. But then there's going to be a period of time where it's just quiet and we're all meditating together. During that period of time of quietness, I'm sure you're going to hear occasional sounds. You might hear a car go by, you might hear a bird chirping, a dog barking, someone might sneeze or cough. This is completely normal. If you have a craving for permanent silence during your meditation, when you hear a sound, you will cause your mind to be annoyed because the mind is craving permanence when you live in an impermanent world. Everything around you is constantly changing. You're not going to be able to be in a world where it's permanently quiet. So you're going to hear occasional sounds. They're going to arise, they're going to change, and they're going to fade away. This is impermanence. So when you hear a sound, if you don't have a craving for permanent silence, your mind can be at ease. You can be completely peaceful because you can see that the world around you is functioning just like it was intended to function, which is through this impermanence, that you're going to see constant impermanence in the world. But the unenlightened mind tends to crave permanence, wanting things to be a certain way, expecting things to be a certain way. And when things meet your expectations, you're happy. But when they don't meet your expectations, you might be frustrated or annoyed or some other discontent feeling. But this is the mind itself that's causing this. So if you're aware that impermanence is normal, you're going to hear occasional sounds, and that's completely normal, you can be at ease and peaceful during your meditation. After that period of time where it's quiet and we're meditating, then we're going to come out of that with some more chanting. And then that's where I'll start today's class, helping you guys to understand the three poisons, what they are, and how to transform the mind away from this, because that's what's going to produce the enlightened mental state. In terms of your body positioning for meditation, there's 4 positions that the Buddha taught. He taught seated, lying, standing, and walking. And you would learn these different positions at different times because it's like creating a tool belt in order to have these available to you during your journey to enlightenment, because your body can't be in the same position permanently. It's just not possible. You're going to need these different positions at different times. But oftentimes people are learning in the seated position. So I'm going to share some guidance with you on the seated position just to help you get started with that. And then that way it can maybe help you to find something that's even more comfortable than the way you're already sitting. There isn't just one fixed way to sit during meditation, because that would be permanence. Everybody needs to find whatever's comfortable for you. So I'm going to share some guidance with you, the things that you can consider, certain recommendations, but you can really sit however you're comfortable. There isn't just one fixed way to sit. So if you're sitting on the floor, or you might be sitting in a chair, on a bench, or a sofa, or a wheelchair, you could really sit however you're comfortable. If you're on the floor, you might sit with some cushions under your rear. This will kind of soften your seat a bit. If you're going to bring your legs together in the cross-leg position, you might just decide to do that lightly. Whereas if they're real tight, it'll impede the circulation and cause pain in the lower body. Some people like to put their legs off the mat. This gets their hips up in the air, and it lessens the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles, again, allowing your circulation to flow. So this is an option for you as well. The Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together, and he put this into his lap. If this is comfortable for you, you could use it. But again, it's not about everyone doing it exactly the same way. There's other options here too. You could put your palms on your thighs or on your knees. Some people like to put their palms up. Some people rest them comfortably in their hand, in their lap. So you could do this however you'd like. So these are all options for you. And for anybody who's sitting in a chair or a bench or a sofa or a wheelchair, Also, you can sit however you're comfortable. You could sit potentially with your feet flat on the floor or lightly crossed at the ankles, but you can see me sitting in this chair with my legs crossed, so that's an option for you too. There's many different ways to sit. And then the hands and arms, you can put those wherever you're comfortable. In terms of your upper body, it's nice if you have your sternum up and your shoulders back, because it's going to help keep your mind attentive and alert during the meditation. This is a dedicated, active, purposeful training session where you're eliminating certain unwholesome qualities from your mind and you're cultivating certain wholesome qualities in the mind. So you would like the mind to be attentive and alert during the meditation. Whereas if you were slouched, the mind would have a tendency to be dull or lethargic. But if you were real rigid, the mind could be overactive or uptight. So you'd like the upper body to be in the middle with the sternum up and the shoulders back. And not only will it keep the mind attentive and alert during the meditation, but it'll make it easy for you to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. So again, I'm going to do some chanting to ease us into meditation. You guys are welcome to join in, and then I'm going to come back in with the guidance to help you. Arahang Sama Sambuddho Mahakawa Potang Mahakawanang Apiwateyami Sawakato Mahakawata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Sawaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa Iti piso emakawa Arahang Sama Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakato Rokawito Anuttero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusarang Poto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath. A nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind has moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมหาเขวาปุตังมหาเขวันหังอภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตภะคะวะตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนภะคะวะโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมหาเขวาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสคาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดัมมาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังปุโตภะคะวะติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, welcome to everyone. Nice to see everyone here this morning. Welcome to everyone who's online joining us as well. As I was mentioning, today is the third day of a 5-day course that I'm teaching, where you're welcome to stay as long as you like or short as you like. This course is titled Foundation in the Path to Enlightenment, and I've been sharing teachings with students to help them establish a foundation in understanding the teachings of the Buddha. And we've been learning a bunch of things throughout the week, and now we're moving into this talk about the 3 poisons, or the 3 unwholesome roots, or the 3 fires. This is a teaching from the Buddha that helps you to understand the problems in the mind and the solutions of how to actually fix it. Because what the Buddha did is he figured out how to get to this enlightened mental state. He experienced complete peace and calm, serenity, and contentedness with joy. This is a permanent mental state that you can attain in this life. By the time you get to enlightenment, it would be physically impossible for you to ever experience anything like anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All these feelings and others are eliminated from the mind. And this comes through eliminating these 3 poisons. You'll notice that the mind is focused. It'll have concentration, clarity, and deep memory. Because when you get rid of these pollutions out of the mind can perform optimally, and you will experience those improved qualities. You'll notice that your personal and professional relationships are really blossoming. Right now, you might have a certain amount of bitterness or hostility in some of your relationships. This can all be transformed. You can get to the point where all your relationships are at ease. They're all harmonious. They're really blossoming. By the time you get to enlightenment, you won't even be in a bad mood any longer. The causes and conditions that are producing that have been uprooted from the mind, and namely, it's these 3 poisons. Oftentimes, people think that these discontent feelings and the struggles and difficulties that you experience in life are coming from the outside world. You might think your parents are annoying you, you, or your brothers and sisters are frustrating you, or maybe your boss is irritating you, or something like this. But what you're going to be able to learn today is how your own mind is causing these feelings, and this is why you can actually eliminate them. Everything in the teachings of the Buddha is all about independently verifying his teachings. You would never be interested in believing his teachings. With belief, you don't know what's true or false. You're just believing it because somebody convinced you to believe it, or you convinced yourself to believe it. In order to be able to get to enlightenment, you need to cultivate wisdom. You need to be able to know the truth. And the way that you do that is through learning, examining, and investigating teachings, through reflecting on them to independently verify whether they're true or they're false. And then you practice the teachings, integrating them into your life, uprooting these pollutions, and you'll see the truth for yourself that these teachings are working. Because you know in situations where you're typically angry and frustrated or agitated or annoyed, and when you're experiencing those same situations and your mind is quite peaceful and joyful, you'll know it's these teachings that are helping you to transform your mind to experience that. So I'm going to be helping you to understand this, but as I'm teaching, it's important that you don't believe what it is that I'm sharing with you. I'm going to be teaching you in a way that you can independently verify what I'm sharing, and I'm going to be giving you several examples throughout my talk where you'll be able to see that I'm explaining things that you experience in your day-to-day life. Many of you I've never met before, but you'll be able to see that through the description and through the examples that I'm sharing with you, I'm describing what you experience on a day-to-day basis. And that's how you'll know that what I'm sharing with you is the truth. The Buddha taught that when you're learning his teachings, that it's important that you listen with eager ears, that you actively learn, because if you're not actively learning, you'll never be able to get to wisdom. So as we go today, you're welcome to ask questions. You're welcome to get clarity on anything that I'm sharing. I'm going to pause at a few times, ensuring that you have an opportunity to ask any questions that you like. Whether you're here at the temple or you're online, you guys can ask questions. If you're here at the temple and you'd like to ask questions, I have microphones here in the front of the room. If you would come get a microphone, press the gray button, you'll see the lights come on. You can hold it up to your chin, and then we'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll be able to hear you online as well. If you speak here without a microphone, they won't be able to hear you online. And you can take these microphones back to your seat with you, because you might have more than one question, or someone around you might have a question, and you can just share the microphone. And then when you're not using it, if you could just turn it off, that way we won't get feedback through the speakers, that'd be wonderful. And for anybody who's in Facebook, YouTube, or in Zoom, if you would like to ask questions, you can put that into the comment section and I'll be able to see it. Or if you're in Zoom, you can electronically raise your hand, unmute your microphone, and we'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll be able to hear you online as well. So this topic of the three poisons of craving, anger, and ignorance, this is kind of a high-level description of what's happening in the mind and how to uproot this and get to the point where you're experiencing complete peace and complete joy, this enlightened mental state. Now, yesterday I taught something called the Eightfold Path for the students that were here. This is a core central teaching of the Buddha that everything else integrates into. You would need to know this teaching inside and out, backwards and forwards, in order to be able to make your way to enlightenment. That's the real training that the Buddha is describing that's going to lead to your enlightenment. So if you weren't here, it's okay, because I've taught this many times throughout the month and throughout the year. It's been recorded many times for our YouTube channel, our Facebook group, our podcast, all of these different places. We have it in our books and our audio books. You can get access to all these things at no cost, and you'll be able to learn this Eightfold Path, because that's what you really need to get started with to be able to actively work towards eliminating these pollutions. But what I'm going to do today is I'm going to go in and show you from the Eightfold Path what is actually targeting these particular pollutions. I'm first going to describe to you what they are, but then I'm going to describe to you the solutions. Essentially, just to get us started, these three poisons, or three unwholesome roots, or three fires, they're also known as defilements or taints or pollutions. This is what's plaguing the unenlightened mind. This is what's causing you to keep experiencing anger and sadness and frustration and all these other discontent feelings over and over and over again. It thoroughly explains why you experience what you experience on a day-to-day basis. The unwholesome results that you experience in your day-to-day life, it's because the unenlightened mind is making decisions through these three poisons. So when you uproot these three unwholesome roots out of your mind, you will be experiencing the wholesome roots, and you'll be experiencing wholesome results in your day-to-day life. Oftentimes people blame what they experience on other people. This is very common, and this just comes from the lack of wisdom that the mind has. There's something called the natural law of karma. Some people call it karma. This is from the Sanskrit version of this word. The original teachings of the Buddha are in something called the Pali language. And in this Pali language, the word Dhamma is being used. So people who study the original teachings of the Buddha will tend to use the word Dhamma. This is what the Buddha is helping you to awaken to. When we talk about awakening to enlightenment, it means to cultivate wisdom. It means to transform the mind. It means to uproot and purify the mind of these pollutions. And part of what you're doing, a big part of what you're doing, is cultivating wisdom about this natural law. What this natural law is its cause and effect, or action and result. It's the results of your decisions. When you make decisions wisely or unwisely, you will experience either wholesome Dhamma, wholesome results, or unwholesome Dhamma, or unwholesome results. The natural law of Dhamma isn't mystical or magical. It's not punishments and rewards. It's not about who's to blame or who's at fault. It's literally a sequence of events that when you make certain decisions, you are going to experience certain results. And when we make decisions wisely, we will experience wholesome results or wholesome Dhamma. And when we make decisions unwisely, we will experience unwholesome results or unwholesome Dhamma. And when you don't understand this natural law, you'll tend to go around the world and making unwise decisions, either inadvertently or either overtly. You'll just go around the world with this lack of wisdom, thinking that what you're doing is wise and wonderful thing to do, but in reality, it's producing unwholesome results because the mind isn't awake or it doesn't have this wisdom of this natural law. We did exactly the same thing when we were younger. We didn't understand the natural law of gravity. And because we lacked wisdom of that natural law, we made all kinds of unwise decisions. And we struggled in this world with the natural law of gravity. When we were 1 year old, 2 years old, 3 years old, we fell down, we hit our elbows, we bumped our head, we broke our toys, and we cried and cried and cried because we lived in a world that we didn't understand. But then slowly but surely, we started gaining wisdom of this natural law of gravity. We never believed in this natural law. We could see the truth for ourselves that it exists because there it is right there. We can see it. We're not believing in the natural law of gravity. We can see it for ourselves that it's actually true and it's real. So we cultivated wisdom about this natural law and we started making wiser and wiser decisions. We started tying our shoes a bit tighter. We started looking at the surface of the sidewalk when we were walking down the street. We stopped being so giddy and bouncing around like a kid all the time. And we started experiencing improved results because we were making wiser decisions. And now we can climb ladders, we can get on bicycles, we can get on airplanes and fly all over the world because we understand. We fully awoke to the natural law of gravity. So we make wise decisions about that. But there's other natural laws that your mind needs to understand. Those struggles and difficulties that you have with stress and anxiety and broken relationships and different things like this, that's because the mind doesn't have the wisdom of these natural laws. And it's functioning in a world that it doesn't understand. So that's why it's struggling and having difficulties in certain situations, because the mind doesn't understand the world that it lives in. So what the Buddha is helping you to be able to do is cultivate wisdom around this natural law so that you can understand the world that you live in. The Buddha didn't describe the way the world should be, in that if everybody follows rules and commandments, the world's going to become a peaceful place. He explains to you the way the world is. And by understanding the way the world is, now you can navigate that world more peacefully. Again, what we tend to do in the unenlightened state is when we experience unwholesome results, we tend to blame it on other people. We think it's other people's fault that we're experiencing what it is that we're experiencing. But when you come to understand that it's your own decisions that are leading to any particular results in your life, this is very empowering. Because if there's anything that you don't particularly care for that's going on in your life, all you need to do is cultivate wisdom, make different decisions, and you will experience different results. But if what you're experiencing is because of other people, you can't change other people. It's not possible for you to change 8 billion people in the world to do things your way. So oftentimes people will think that what they're experiencing is either good luck or bad luck, or destiny or fate, or they might think God or some entity called the universe is controlling what they experience, or they might blame it on other people. And if you resign yourself to this type of thinking, you'll never actually improve what you experience on a day-to-day basis, because there's no such thing as good luck or bad luck, or destiny or fate, or there's not a being like God that's controlling us and telling us what we should or shouldn't do, or forcing us to do anything, or any entity like the universe. And it's not other people that are causing us to experience what we experience. It's our own decisions that are leading to any particular result. And when we make decisions through these three poisons, then we will experience these unwholesome results, or unwholesome karma, coming back to us because we're making decisions in an unwise way. So getting rid of these three pollutions of the mind, now you can make decisions through the wholesome qualities of mind that are going to produce wholesome results. By the time you get to enlightenment, you're only experiencing wholesome results. You're no longer experiencing unwholesome results in your day-to-day life. So again, if there's something in your life that you don't particularly care for that's happening, just cultivate wisdom, make different decisions, and you will experience different results. But if we blame it on other people, or we think it's good luck, bad luck, destiny, fate, God, or some entity called the universe, then we can't do anything to fix it. We're stuck. We're like robots. And that's not the way that the world actually works. All we need to do is cultivate wisdom, make different decisions, and we will experience different results. So getting rid of these three pollutions, which provides a really clear description to you of why you experience what you experience, because you're going to hear me share those examples. These three poisons, when the Buddha talks about them at a high level, he describes them as the three unwholesome roots, or the three fires, or the three poisons. But at a more detailed level, he refers to them as the 10 fetters. This is something I introduced students to in this course on Monday. The 10 fetters are 10 individual pollutions. This is the most detailed description that the Buddha gives you about what's going on in your own mind. They're referred to as fetters because during the lifetime of the Buddha, if you were a criminal and they were trying to keep you in a certain area, they would attach a fetter to your ankle. This was a shackle and a chain and a ball, and it would keep you confined in a certain area, like a field, an open field. Where today we put prisoners in jail cells or prison cells, but back then they would attach a fetter to your ankle, a shackle and a chain and a ball. So when the Buddha discovers these pollutions, he describes them as fetters because it's keeping the mind trapped in this unenlightened state, continuing to experience anger and frustration and all these other discontent feelings like guilt, shame, and fear and stress and anxiety over and over and over again. But just like a criminal, when you release this fetter off of your ankle and you're free, your mind, you're liberated, it's the same thing that when you eliminate these pollutions out of your mind, the mind is free, it's liberated. But when you have these pollutions in your mind, the mind is bound up. It's only a matter of time before something happens in your life and you're annoyed or you're frustrated or agitated or some other discontent feeling. But when you get rid of these pollutions, you've let go of the fetters. The fetters are gone out of the mind, and now your mind is free. And you can experience the peace and the joy that the Buddha describes as enlightenment. And you can see this is occurring slowly but surely. One of the biggest myths about the life story of the Buddha is people think he sat under a tree, he meditated, and he instantly got to enlightenment. This isn't actually true. You can see it in his actual teachings, in his own words. He talks about this gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. And you know this to be true because everything you've ever done in life has been that way. Whether it's to learn to read, write, and speak English, it was gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. If it's some job or occupation, some special ability that you have, and now you're proficient at that, it's been gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. Getting to enlightenment is exactly the same way. You can't just snap your fingers and instantly get to enlightenment. It took the Buddha 6 years to get to enlightenment. And it's through eliminating these pollutions of the 10 fetters, but at a high level, these 3 poisons that are going to actually produce those qualities of enlightenment to start shining through more and more. And then you can practice the wholesome qualities, which I'm going to introduce you to as well. These wholesome roots. This is what's going to produce wholesome Dhamma in your day-to-day life by making decisions through these wholesome roots. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce you to these 3 at a high level, but then I'm going to go into each one of them in detail and focus on the solutions of how to fix it. So these 3 poisons are called craving, anger, and ignorance, but you'll hear other people refer to them in other ways, like greed, hatred, and delusion, or desire, ill will, and confusion. You can hear different people will use different ways to refer to them. I found that craving, anger, and ignorance helps students to understand this the most, so I tend to use craving. What craving Desire, attachment, wants, and expectations. What this is the mind's longing, yearning, chasing after the objects of your affection, wanting things to be a certain way. And if the mind gets what it wants, it experiences pleasant feelings like happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria. But if you don't get what you want, then you experience painful feelings like anger, sadness, frustration, or some other feeling like stress or anxiety, because the mind's not getting what it wants and what it expects. And then there's feelings that are neither painful nor pleasant, like shyness or uncomfortableness or dissatisfaction. This is also a type of feeling that the unenlightened mind experiences as well. So these cravings, desires, attachments, is the mind longing, yearning, and chasing after the objects of its affection, thinking the next new shiny object waiting around the corner is going to provide some lasting satisfaction. So the mind is craving permanence. So if you could think back to a time when you were with like a boyfriend or girlfriend, when you first got together, you might have been so happy. You might have been so excited. This person is showing interest in you. They're showing you affection. They're inviting you to the movies or out to dinner. You're going to the park. You're having great conversations. Maybe you're having intimate contact. Wow, so pleasurable because you're getting what you want, which is this new person in your life, and they're showing you affection. But then over time, you start having these expectations of things you want from this person, and they can't meet those permanently. And there's certain things that they want from you, and you can't meet those. And now you guys break up. And now you might be even more angry or more frustrated. You might be lonely or bored. You might be missing this person. This is the mind craving permanence, wanting this person to be in your life permanently. Whereas oftentimes people think it's love that's causing this, or your care, or your concern. That actually doesn't cause painful feelings. What's causing painful feelings is the mind is holding on to this relationship, wanting it to be permanent, when in reality, everything around you is impermanent. It's constantly changing. So if you hold on to this person and want them to be in your life permanently, and your mind's holding on and holding on and holding on, but they've chosen to leave out of your life, you're going to experience painful feelings because the mind's not getting what it wants. You can see this if you've had someone close to you that has died. Maybe like grandma or grandpa, or mom or dad, or brothers or sisters, or a friend or family member. When they died, you might have grieved or had sorrow, or you might have been sad or even angry. It wasn't your love that was causing this. This was the mind craving permanence, wanting grandma or grandpa to be permanent, or mom or dad, or brothers and sisters. Because they were born, they had to die. That's the only reason why they died, is because they were born. They are impermanent. But your mind, if it craves permanence, when you're getting what you want, you'll have pleasant feelings like happiness and excitement. But when you're not getting what you want, you'll get painful feelings like anger, sadness, and frustration. You can see this maybe more clearly with something that's not a relationship. Let's say you bought a brand new car and you got so excited when you got this brand new car, and you drove off the parking lot and everyone's like, wow, look at him. He's so successful. Wow, look at her. She's got a new car. She's so successful. And you might be so proud driving your car. Well, if you park your car at the store and you go inside and you come out and there's a scratch on your car, you might be frustrated or angry. This is your mind craving permanence, wanting this car to be permanently beautiful. Now, we're not talking about what's wise or unwise, because obviously when we walk through a parking lot, we aspire not to scratch anybody's car. But the fact is that this car is impermanent. It's going to get scratches. The paint's going to fade. The tires are going to need to be changed. The upholstery is going to get ripped and torn. This is the impermanent nature of this car. But as long as your mind craves permanence, when you're seeing all this change with this car, your mind's not going to like it. You're going to be holding on and craving permanence. And now as it deteriorates, you'll get frustrated or angry or irritated. So there's a better way of life that the Buddha taught. But as long as your mind is craving permanence, you can't be completely peaceful and joyful. Your mind's going to sometimes get what it wants and be happy and excited, but other times it's going to be angry or frustrated. Here's some other examples. Let's just say you get really excited when it's sunny outside. So excited. When it rains, you'll be frustrated or agitated or annoyed. Or if you get really happy when your bank account balance is up here, when it goes down here, you'll be frustrated or agitated. You can see that it's not other people causing you to be angry because there's nobody else involved. Just when it goes from sun to rain, there's no other person involved. When your bank account balance goes from here to here, there's no other person involved, right? You need to be able to see this truth for yourself. As I mentioned to you, don't believe anything that I have to say, right? You need to independently verify that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. And here's how you do that. Take a recent time when you've been angry or frustrated, agitated, or annoyed. Might have been this morning, might have been yesterday or last week. Look at that situation with these fresh eyes, with this new wisdom. What is it that your mind wanted? What were you expecting? That if you would have got what you wanted, you would have been happy. But because you didn't get what you wanted, you got angry or frustrated or sad or some other discontent feeling. At that time, you might have been trying to blame someone else because that's what the mind does. But look at it with these fresh eyes so that you can have this breakthrough to be able to see that it's your own mind causing these feelings. And if you have trouble seeing this, let me know, because there's been plenty of people over the years that have challenges to be able to see that it's their own mind causing these feelings. Oftentimes, a story that I share with people is a student called me one time and they said, David, I need to talk to you. They said, I know you teach that my mind causes my own discontentedness, but I just don't see it. They said, I went to work the other day. My house looked beautiful. It looked so nice. And I went to work and then I came home and my wife had this craft project all over the house. And when I walked in the door, I got frustrated. How did my mind cause this discontent feeling? My wife's the one who messed up the house. Didn't she cause me to be upset and angry and frustrated? And I said, no, she didn't. Your mind was craving permanence. You went to work with the expectation that your house was going to look exactly the same when you came back home. And 8 hours later, when you came back home, your house didn't look the same. The only thing that happened was change. That's all that happened. The mind's craving permanence. Another way to say that is that the mind does not like impermanence. It doesn't like change. You can look at your life in the situations where you've experienced the most change, whether you're changing jobs or living locations or relationships. Those were the times that you were struggling the most. So if you're having challenges to see that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, let me know, because I'll be able to help you to see where your mind is craving permanence. Your mind's wanting things to be a certain way. Because when your cravings are getting fulfilled, as I mentioned, you'll get pleasant feelings. You'll be happy and excited temporarily for a period of time. But when your mind's not getting what it wants, it's going to move to these painful feelings. And one of the things that's going to happen is anger is going to arise in your mind. And when that anger is arising, which is the second poison, when that anger, that frustration, that irritation and annoyance is arising, when you don't understand that it's your own mind that's causing this, you will tend to push people away, or you will push the situation away. You might have pushed away friends or family out of your life, thinking that this is going to solve the problem. But you can see that that didn't solve it, because when you push those people out of your life, you still get annoyed. You still get frustrated. If they were the true cause of your problem, when you push them away, you'd be peaceful for the rest of your life. Or if you're not pushing people away, you might be bitter and harsh and hostile to them through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. It's almost like an animal growling and roaring at another animal, trying to fear them into doing things your way. It's like, do things my way, being really angry and hostile and bitter. And now when you put that out, that's what comes back to you. Or you might put your expectations on people and try to control people or pressure people to do things your way. In fact, you might have people doing this to you. You might have people pushing you away. You might have people being bitter and harsh and hostile with you. And you might have people putting their expectations on you and trying to control you and force you to do things their way. And as long as you're doing this, you can't live harmoniously in all relationships, because it's only a matter of time before somebody does something differently than you expect. Because not everybody does things exactly the same way in the world. That would be permanence. But the way that the unenlightened mind works is because it has ego, it has arrogance, it thinks my way is the right way and everybody else's way is the wrong way. The mind will want everybody to do it my way. And when they do it my way, it's the right way, and I'm happy about that. But then when they don't do it my way, the unenlightened mind is going to be angry or frustrated. And when this anger is arising, that's where it becomes unskillful. And it pushes people away. It's bitter, harsh, and hostile, and it puts its expectations on people. And now you can't live harmoniously with all people. You experience broken relationship after broken relationship. And where all this is coming from is the third poison, or the third unwholesome root. Oftentimes people refer to this as ignorance. I tend to not use this word. I like the phrase unknowing of true reality, or confusion, or misunderstanding, or lack of wisdom. The word ignorance is a derogatory word, and a Buddha wouldn't refer to someone in a derogatory and degrading way. So we're translating his words into English, and some people use this word ignorance. But a better way to think about it is the unknowing of true reality. The mind in the unenlightened state just doesn't understand what it doesn't understand. It doesn't understand that it's truly craving, desire, attachment, the longing, yearning that's causing that anger. And that anger is being caused by the mind itself. It's not being caused by anything external. So this lack of wisdom that the mind has continues to hinder it, and it continues to struggle and have difficulties in the world. So while we call it craving, anger, and ignorance, it's really because of ignorance that craving and anger continues to exist in the mind. If it wasn't for this lack of wisdom, the craving and anger would have been eliminated from the mind. So that's why in the teachings of the Buddha, your goal is to arise wisdom, where you can see the truth for yourself. And now with that wisdom, you can implement the tools and techniques that he taught to be able to eradicate craving and anger. And then you can get to peace and you can get to joy. But again, if it's other people that are causing these feelings, you can never get to peace. You can never get to joy, right? So the Buddha didn't go around and teach everybody to do things his way. He trained his mind to be able to get to the peace and the joy. And you can do that same exact thing today through learning and practicing his teachings. You can get to that same peace and that same joy. And it's through eradicating these three poisons, or these three pollutions. So now I'm going to talk about craving a little bit more, and then I'm going to talk about the solutions of how to fix it. And then I'll open up to questions to see what questions you guys have. So again, this craving, this longing, this yearning, this wanting things to be a certain way. What the mind does in the unenlightened state is it has these painful feelings of things like anger and frustration and stress and anxiety. And the mind's like, what do I need in order to feel better? A new boyfriend, a new girlfriend, that'll fix everything. Let me go get one of those. And the mind kind of chases after that for a while. And then you get a new boyfriend, a new girlfriend, and you're happy for a period of time, but then that fades away, right? And then the mind's like, what do I need to be more happy? More money. That'll fix everything. Let me go get more money. And now the mind chases after more money for a while. And then you feel happy when you get your money, right? But then that fades away too. And the mind's like, what do I need? A new house, a bigger house, a nicer car, more friends, jewelry, clothing. These are the things that are going to make me happy. Let me chase after those things for a while. But this is only temporary happiness, because as long as you base your happiness on a temporary thing, then your happiness is temporary. So if you base your happiness on the sun, well, you can only be happy when it's sunny outside. When it's raining, you can't be happy, right? Because the sun is not permanent. So if you base your happiness on the sun, when the sun's gone, you're not happy any longer, right? So you need to get to the point where you're not basing your inner feelings on external things. And the Buddha's teachings will train your mind how to do that. The two things that are really targeting this and helping you to be able to accomplish this is called breathing mindfulness meditation and generosity. What the mind's doing with this craving is it's holding on to things and it's wanting things to be permanent. So that meditation we did this morning where you're focused on the breath and the mind moves off the breath and then you're cutting it off and letting it go and bringing the mind back to the breath. Your goal here isn't to eliminate your thoughts. You will always have thoughts during meditation. Even when your mind's enlightened, you will still have thoughts. But what you're doing is you're training your mind to let go. So if 10, 15, 20, 30 times during your meditation, you had to let go, let go, let go, let go, and keep coming back to the breath, that's really good for your mind because your mind doesn't know how to let go. That's why when you had that boyfriend or girlfriend, you were sad or angry or lonely or bored or missing that person for an extended period of time. It wasn't until your mind let go that you regained your peace. right? Like at some point you're like, you know what? If he wants to be with someone else, so be it. And you let him go. Or, you know what? If she would like to move to another part of the world, so be it. And you let her go, right? And when you let her go, that's where your mind regained its peace. But the mind doesn't know how to do that in the unenlightened state. So consistently throughout your weeks and months and years, you're training with breathing mindfulness meditation to let go. So when your mind moves off the breath, that's not a problem. What you're doing is you're letting that go and coming back. What you'll experience in the unenlightened state is you'll experience a bombardment of thoughts, lots and lots and lots of thoughts during your meditation. Or you'll have a thought and you'll follow it for a period of time. You'll play with it. You'll look at it. You'll indulge in it. And you're like, oh yeah, that's right. I'm meditating. Let me bring my mind back. So if you experience these things, it's very normal. But over time, you'll get to the point where you'll have a thought. You'll notice it. You'll cut it off, let it go, and bring the mind right back to the breath. And in between, there's peace. There's quietness. There's stillness in your mind. So that's what an enlightened being is experiencing, where there's this peace and stillness in between their thoughts, where you would like to notice your thoughts sooner and sooner and cut it off and let it go easier and easier. That's the goal of this meditation. It's helping you to develop awareness of mind and concentration. These are two wholesome qualities, and it's helping you to eliminate the unwholesome quality of craving, desire, attachment, where the mind's holding on and it won't let go. Then the Buddha teaches generosity. This is the giving and sharing of more than is strictly required in any given situation without any expectation of anything in return, such as your time, your effort, your energy, and your resources. When you're giving and sharing with other people, this is training your mind to live open-handedly and be joyful in sharing with other people. Because when you have craving in your mind, it'll be quite selfish. It'll say, I'm going to spend 3 hours doing this, and I want this in return. I'm going to spend 3 days doing this and I want this in return. The mind's going to want and want and want and want. But what you need to be able to do is train your mind to be able to share with other people and find joy in sharing with other people, that it doesn't have to always be about me, 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 me. When we were growing up as kids, we were typically taught to share. You might have been taught to share your toys, but you weren't necessarily taught why. The reason why is because it trained your mind to let go and to not hold on to things so tightly. So as long as your mind's holding on to things tightly, then you're not going to be able to experience the peace and joy, because you can't get things your way all the time. That would be permanence when you live in an impermanent world. So the Buddha taught generosity, where you give and share your time, effort, energy, and resources without any expectation of anything in return. And this is going to help your mind to let go. So let's just say you're walking into a store and there's someone coming behind you. Well, you could practice generosity and you could hold the door and you could let those people go in before you. But you need to be careful that you're not standing there with an expectation. Because if you're standing there with the expectation that they're going to say thank you, when they walk through the door and they don't say thank you, you'll be frustrated. And that's your own mind that's causing that, because you're having an expectation. The mind wants everybody who walks through this door, when I hold it, to say thank you. And the thing is that that's the mind craving permanence, and you live in an impermanent world. Not everyone's going to say thank you. Some people are so caught up in their mind about what it is they need to get out of this store, they don't even see you standing there holding the door. Right? So when you're practicing generosity, you need to understand that the only goal is to enhance the quality of your mind. You're not there because you want a thank you. That's not why you should hold the door, right? Because maybe when you walk through the door, you say thank you, but not everybody will. Because if everybody said thank you, that would be permanence. And you live in an impermanent world. Things are constantly changing. You're never going to get to a point where everybody says thank you that walks through the door. So if you set that expectation in your mind, you're just sabotaging your ability to be peaceful and joyful. Because as soon as someone walks through the door that says thank you, you'll be happy. But then when someone walks through the door that doesn't say thank you, you'll be frustrated. So if you practice generosity, where you're giving your time, effort, energy, and resources to other people and sharing with other people, this is going to help to train your mind to let go. And you can do this in very simple ways, like holding the door for people. You can, if you're going to the market, you're buying yourself some mangoes. You know your neighbors like bananas. put some bananas in there, share with your neighbors, right? You're going to work, maybe take some bagels, take some donuts, take some fruit. Maybe your coworkers would like to experience some of this, right? You can share. You can buy your friend lunch. You can, do any number of things, but you need to be able to do it without any expectation of anything in return. And these two things together are targeting the mind's craving, desire, attachment, where it's holding on and it doesn't know how to let go. But remember, it's the Eightfold Path, which is the core central teaching of the Buddha, that is ultimately going to put together all the different factors that you need to train your mind to let go. If you were only practicing meditation and generosity, you wouldn't be able to fully train your mind to let go of its craving, desire, attachments. There's other things as well. These are just the things that are really targeting it, but there's other things that you need as well. And that's why I taught that particular teaching yesterday. So I'm going to pause here and see what questions you guys have on this aspect before we move into the next two. Does anybody have any questions here? Again, we have the microphones, and online you can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, and I'll be able to see that in the comment section. Or in Zoom, you can electronically raise your hand and ask any questions that you like. You're welcome to take those to your seat if you like. It's up to you. Yeah. Up to you.
Thank you for sharing. And it's not really super related to this, but it's always been on my mind. So you mentioned when you reach the status of enlightenment, then everything you feel is wholesome. So I'm wondering, if there's no bad, there's no good, wouldn't you just be floating in kind of vacuum space?
Sometimes people have that misperception that that's the case, but that's actually not the case. That you're not experiencing painful feelings. You're not experiencing what's called conditioned pleasant feelings, but instead you're experiencing unconditioned happiness or unconditioned joy. So conditioned happiness is like, if my mom and dad does this, if my boss does this, if the weather is this, if the bank account is this, if I have this type of house and this type of car, then I will be happy, right? So the ability of all those things to be true basically shrinks your ability to be happy. It's sabotaging your ability, because all those things being true is not going to happen permanently, right? So that's called conditional happiness, that I can only be happy when these conditions are met. And that's what the unenlightened mind experiences. By the time you get to enlightenment, you're beyond this, where your mind is experiencing unconditional happiness, where it's just always happy and there doesn't need to be any condition met. If it's sunny outside, you're already happy before it's sunny outside. If it's raining outside, you're already happy. You can maintain your happiness and your joy because your feelings aren't based on whether it's sunny or it's raining. So this is something that the mind needs to know how to do and needs to be trained. What the unenlightened mind can see very clearly is it can see like this chasing that I'm talking about, like this longing, yearning, this chasing after things. And it can usually see the other side too, which is where it's dull and lethargic and lazy and complacent. But what the Buddha is doing is inviting you to this middle way where you can make wise decisions towards certain goals, objectives, or interest. And now you can pursue that with enthusiasm and ambition, but you're not chasing after pleasant feelings. You're working towards things in a wise direction based on certain goals that you're looking to accomplish. And then you can maintain your happiness whether you accomplish that goal or not.
And one follow-up question. I actually find pain necessary in life to cultivate quality. And what do you think?
You don't need pain because you've experienced enough pain in your life. You don't have to keep experiencing pain over and over to be able to then experience complete happiness and complete joy. In the unenlightened state, when you are experiencing pain, in terms of mental pain, mental anguish, this is an indication for you that your mind is not yet enlightened. And that can be insightful for you because you can look inwardly and you can see, what am I craving? What am I longing, yearning for here? It can be insightful for you, but eventually when you're letting go of all those cravings, desires, attachments, slowly but surely, you will see that your mind becomes more and more peaceful. You know, there's certain things already, like if you could think back to when you were a child, you probably liked chocolate and ice cream, like a lot of us, right? It was like, mommy, I want chocolate and ice cream. I want chocolate and ice cream. Daddy, mommy, can you get me chocolate and ice cream? And they're like, sure, here you go. And you're like, thank you so much. You're the best mommy and daddy, right? We were so happy. And then the next day, mommy, daddy, can I have chocolate and ice cream? Sure, here you go. You're the best mommy and daddy ever. But then at some point you were like, mommy, daddy, can I have chocolate and ice cream? And they said, no. And you said, you're you're the worst mommy. Or you might not have said this, but I probably did. Mommy, daddy, you're the worst mommy and daddy ever. Right? We were angry. We thought it was mom and dad that were causing our anger. But in reality, it was our own mind craving permanence, wanting this chocolate and ice cream to be permanent. But at some point, we got over that. We let go of our attachment to craving chocolate and ice cream. And now if you have chocolate and ice cream, hey, that's fine. You can have chocolate and ice cream, no big deal. But it's not like when we were kids. Boy, we wanted that chocolate and ice cream just about every day. And if we got it 3 or 4 times in a day, oh, that was the best day ever, right? But we overcame that. And now we're at the point where we're peaceful. So we don't have to keep experiencing the pain of not having chocolate and ice cream to be able to overcome and get to the point where we can be peaceful. If we have chocolate and ice cream, great. And if we don't, that's fine too. That's what it means to be liberated from your cravings. But there's other cravings besides just chocolate and ice cream. It's not the chocolate and ice cream that's the problem. It's the mind longing, yearning, wanting it to be permanent, right? So there's certain relationships that you probably have that if people do things a certain way, you're happy. And if they don't do things that way, you experience painful feelings. You don't have to keep experiencing those painful feelings in order to get to permanent happiness and permanent joy. You can train your mind that this person is not going to do things your way. They're not going to do things the way you expect. And that's okay because the world's impermanent. And everybody's going to do things differently. And that's their choice. And then you get to make the choice of whether or not you spend time with that person or not. And if they do things in a way that you find to be unwise to associate with that person, then you can make the choice to move away, right? And go away from this relationship. But forcing this person or attempting to force this person to do things your way is just going to lead to your frustration because they'll never do it your way 100%. Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Okay, let me see if we have anything online here. Okay, I don't see anything. Oh, you have a question, man? Yeah, we have plenty of microphones. You can take these back with you, and you can even take more than one if you like, because other people might have a question. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so actually I was here this February.
Mm-hmm.
You don't remember, but yeah. So I'm right now having issue with performing generosity, or like my recent understanding of myself is that I don't really have the capability to love people, and like in reality, my performance will be. I find it naturally that I want to get closer to people that are strong, capable, mm-hmm. that I admire, mm-hmm. And usually those type of people are the people that I think. They know what they want, they know who they are, and they have the capability, the willingness, the determination to achieve those things. Mm-hmm. I find myself want to be those kind of person, and mm-hmm. I try to spend more time with those kind of person. Mm-hmm. But meanwhile, I find myself also intolerant of the quote unquote weaker people, like mm-hmm. my mother, my parents. Maybe they cannot express themselves clearly, mm-hmm. they cannot think clearly, they cannot act in a wise way, and maybe my interns in the company, they're super weak at their capability, and I need to spend more time to correcting their faults. All those times maybe it's because I'm still young, I haven't reached that peaceful stage where I'm strong enough so that I'm not afraid of people dragging me down because they are quote unquote weak. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just like right now, my like sometimes I wonder if I should push myself to be more tolerant to people, mm-hmm. love people to because right now I really I almost try to stay away from all the weaker ones.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not because you're young that this is happening. The reason why it's happening is because of craving, desire, attachment. The mind is craving people with these certain qualities. And when people don't have those qualities, that's where your annoyment is arising, right? Because the mind gets what it wants, it's happy. But when it doesn't get what it wants, it experiences the painful feelings. That's what craving, desire, attachment does. And then what I said to you before is I said that when the mind's not getting what it wants, it will typically push people away, or it'll push the situation away. And that's what your mind's doing. This is called aversion, that you think that if I push away these, what you're describing as weak people, that you think that's going to solve the problem. but it doesn't solve the problem, because the true cause of the problem is in your mind. It's the craving for permanence, wanting everybody to be a certain way, expecting everyone to be a certain way. And not everybody can be that way. You need to be able to understand impermanence, that some people are going to be stronger, some people are going to have other qualities, and you can learn to love all beings and understand that everybody's different and this is okay. But the mind is going to crave permanence. So you need to fully understand the Eightfold Path and implement each individual factor of the Eightfold Path. Like I mentioned, just doing what I'm talking about here isn't going to lead to a complete transformation of the mind. This is just what's targeting it. So since you were probably only here for a little bit in February, you're going to need to more fully understand the entire path. And even when you go back to your home country, you can still learn here because we live stream. Right? And you can attend live classes, or you can watch the recordings or whatever you like. You can get the books and audiobooks and all these things at no cost. So I would encourage you to learn the Eightfold Path in detail. And ultimately, as you put together more and more of the teachings, you'll be able to see how you can love all beings. Right now, your mind's having certain conditions that if people meet these conditions, I feel comfortable to be with them. And if they don't meet these conditions, I don't feel comfortable. That's the mind's craving, desire, attachment that's doing that.
Just one more add, I find it like natural. It's like human nature to want to stay with the stronger ones to kind of increase our survival probabilities. So it's like a kind of embedded in our mind. So I think what I'm trying to practice it here is to, I know it's natural human, like animal nature, but it's definitely not like the best thing that we can get for ourselves.
Yeah, there's no harm in choosing to associate with people who are doing wholesome things. There's no harm in making those choices, but it's when the mind is pushing away or deeming these people to be lesser of a person that it's going to hurt your mind, because it's harming your own mind to do that. So there's no harm in choosing to be around wholesome people. In fact, the Buddha teaches this, but you need to be able to do that without judging other people and looking down on them and making wise decisions. And since you mentioned this about animalistic instincts, is that what you're doing on this path to enlightenment, among other things, is you're becoming a better and better human being. We've all been in the animal world countless times. So as an unenlightened human being, we tend to function like animals. We're not animals. We're human beings. We're different than animals. That's why our mind can be cultivated to the point of experiencing enlightenment. So what you'd like to do is shed those animalistic instincts, right? Because what an animal is going to do, among other things, is going to have this conceit where it wants this pecking order, right? Because when we were a herd of elephants, we needed to know who's the matriarch of our herd. Because if we didn't know who she was, we would have just been a roaming elephant in the jungle. And the matriarch of our herd was showing us where the food is, where the migration paths are, where the watering holes were. And if we didn't know who was above us as an elephant, we would have died, right? But so we needed to know who's the leader of our herd. So in this animal world, you need that. But in the human world, you don't need that. You can learn to associate with all people and be polite, kind, friendly, respectful with everybody. And you can learn and train your mind to be just as peaceful with people who you see as having stronger qualities, and other people who maybe have qualities that aren't things that you particularly find to be admirable. And that's okay. You can spend time with those people and still be peaceful. But your mind needs to be stronger, where you're not influenced in a negative way because of the things that they're choosing to do. Right now, there's definitely wise decisions, right? Like if these people were like into drugs or alcohol, or if they're killing or stealing or lying, it would be wise to go away from that type of thing. But you're not doing it with judgment. You're not looking down on them, seeing them as weaker. It's just that it's a wise decision for you to not associate with that, because those decisions are going to impact them in a negative way. And therefore, if you chose to be friends with them, it's going to impact you in a negative way too. So you can choose to spend time with these people over here, but you would be just as peaceful to spend time with these people. But just out of your wisdom, you're choosing not to do that. And that's what you can get to if you train your mind. You don't need to keep living like this, because you're going to go into a social environment and you're going to be measuring people and comparing them and trying to figure out, who do I spend time with and who do I not? And this is going to cause your mind to be obsessive and overactive. And now you're going to experience stress and anxiety as a result. So you can get rid of all that and just enjoy spending time with everybody and see that everybody's different, and that's okay.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Amen.
Thank you, David. And I understand a lot of craving and attachment. I see it in different ways. I can inspect how I feel when those unwelcome feelings come up. And I know when I'm thinking selfishly and want something selfish, or it's greedily thinking and wanting something. Mm-hmm. And I'm able to apply what I'm learning to those instances. But there are other times when I feel completely treated unfairly. Mm-hmm. And I try to apply some of these teachings, and I apply the impermanence of it all. And it's just like so much more difficult for the mind to try and incorporate these teachings. So like with a bank, I do online banking because I don't live in the UK, and it's just, the way there's been a mistake. I don't get all the details, but every month it's costing me quite a lot of money, and the bank have kind of half acknowledged it, but whatever it is, they little regard for me in this instance, and I think about it, and it's this feeling of being not a victim or being disregarded or something. And I think, well, this is impermanence. This is my expectation that everybody is going to align themselves, including the bank, to treat me correctly. And I know that that's unreasonable, but with certain things, it's just so much more difficult. I just wanted to put fairness.
It's still on. It just went out because it's impermanent. It was still on. It just, the signal's not permanent, so it'll skip, right? That's just like the Buddha taught.
Everything what a day I'm having.
It's impermanent.
Okay. Yeah. But the Buddha ever talk about fairness in regards to these things? It just seems there's a difference between me craving something that you might have, or greedily wanting a better house, or that. But then wanting just to be treated fairly is a different thing.
It's still craving. It's still craving for permanence. And there's some conceit in there too, that I am somebody that needs to be treated this way, that I require people to treat me this way. So like I have all these same situations, right? But you need to be able to understand that it's impermanence. That's all it is. That as soon as you put the I in there, like they are treating me unfairly. There's nobody that's sitting in an office somewhere in the UK thinking like, let's really twist this guy's buttons and like really do something, in a certain way towards this guy. Instead, there's just some impermanence somewhere along the way, right? Like I just, that the students bought me this car after my, to get this car. And then I put a deposit down for 3,000 baht for the dealer plates. And then once I got my regular plates, I gave them their plates back, and they're supposed to return the 3,000 baht deposit to me. And after like a week, they hadn't returned it to me. I wrote them and I said, hey, what's going on? Is you're going to give me that 3,000 baht back or whatever I said? And they're like, oh, it takes 45 days to do that. And I was like, oh, okay. That's not the way I would run my business, because I think, a car dealership probably has tons of money around. Why would you hold on to this customer's money for 45 days? It doesn't make sense. But nonetheless, that's their policy. Okay. So then we got to the 45 days and we were beyond that, and they hadn't given me my money back yet. So I sent them another message and I said, hey, it's been past 45 days. Is it, what's happening with this 3,000 baht? And they're like, oh, there's been a delay. The central office is having some procedural issues. It's going to take some more time. And I said, okay. right? And then I thought about it for a couple of days and I wrote them back and I said, is there an estimate of when you were planning to, give me the 3,000 baht back? And they haven't written back to me. And it's been over a week since that message, right? So this is just the way they're choosing to operate their business. I will give it another probably 2, 3, 4 weeks, however long, see what happens. And ultimately, if nothing happens, at that point, it'll have been 3 months that they've had this 3,000 baht. And I'll probably go to the dealership, talk to the manager, being polite and kind of friendly, respectful, and see if I can somehow figure out where this 3,000 baht is and if they can return it back to me, right? So they're not treating me unfairly. There's just something on their side that they're being hindered from getting this 3,000 baht. Maybe they're having a shortness of cash. Maybe who knows what's happening. They just opened a brand new dealership and maybe they're putting a lot of their cash towards that. Who knows? But it's not me that they're treating unfairly or disrespectful. It's just some impermanence somewhere along the line, and I just need to be patient and figure out where that impermanence is. But as soon as you put yourself in the center of that and say, oh, they have to treat me a certain way, that's your conceit and your arrogance, and you need to get rid of this craving that everybody's going to treat you in a certain way. And then you just make decisions about the type of people that you do business with. I probably will not buy a car from these people again, even though they've done a wonderful job all the way up to this point. I probably wouldn't buy another car from them potentially because of the way that I see that they're handling this situation. Not because I'm angry or frustrated, just because I would make a different decision next time based on what I see that they're doing in this situation. So that's where if there's something you don't particularly care for, cultivate wisdom, make different decisions, and you'll experience different results. Getting to the point where you're only experiencing wholesome karma doesn't mean everything's going to go your way. That's not what that means. It just means that you're not going to experience any harm. So there's no harm that they're causing me by not giving me that 3,000 baht. It's just that, that's interesting that you're keeping this 3,000 baht for so long. Doesn't make sense to me, but somewhere in their company, it makes sense to them. And that's what they're choosing to do. But then they're going to experience the consequences of that, right? They're going to experience where customers aren't interested in coming back to buy another car. People aren't going to refer them to other people and tell them good news about this dealer. That's the karma that they're experiencing. So you need to get rid of the craving that everybody's going to treat you a certain way. It's not possible. Okay. So now let's go to this next one, because craving, desire, attachment is that craving for permanence, wanting and expecting things to be a certain way. And if it happens your way, you'll be happy and excited. But if it doesn't happen your way, you'll get the painful feelings. And when those painful feelings like anger and frustration and all these other things are arising, that's where the mind becomes unskillful. It will be bitter and harsh and hostile towards people through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. You'll tend to push people away or push a situation away, or you'll put your expectations on people and try to pressure them to do things your way. And as I mentioned, people might actually be doing this to you too. And this is not the way that you would like to live life, because if you can only be peaceful when people are doing things your way, then it's only a matter of time before this anger and hostility arises. And now people aren't doing things your way, and there's this frustration and agitation, and you might push these people away. You might be bitter, harsh, and hostile to them, or you might put your expectations on them. And you can get to an improvement where you have love and kindness for all beings. The Buddha teaches loving kindness meditation to transform the mind, to be able to be loving and kind with all people around you. This is a different type of meditation than what we did this morning, where you're cultivating this genuine interest in seeing all beings be well, where there's active goodwill towards all beings. And then as you're doing that in your meditation, you go out into the world through your intention, speech, and actions, and you're loving and kind with all people around you. That's why it's unwise to call up the bank and be bitter and harsh and hostile, because it's not going to produce any beneficial results. That's just the mind trying to fear these people into doing things my way, right? So even this car dealership, just being polite and respectful with them. And when I show up to go see them, if I end up doing that, then I'll just be polite and respectful and just talk and figure out where is the issue. Have a discussion. But when you have a craving and you want things your way, you will go into that car dealership and try to pressure and force them to do things your way through bitterness and harshness and hostility. And that's just damaging your relationships with people, right? And that's acting upon this craving and anger. So when that craving is coming up, it feels uncomfortable for the mind, and you're attributing it to something external, because the last thing the ego wants to admit to you is that the problem is inside your own mind. That's the last thing your ego wants to admit to you. It's got to be somebody else that's the problem, because you're perfect, right? That's what the ego thinks, right? I'm perfect. Everyone else is the problem, right? That's not true, right? You need to be able to see that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. And when this anger is coming up, sure, it feels uncomfortable, but you're not going to solve it by being bitter and harsh and hostile to the people around you. The way you solve it is you train your mind with loving kindness meditation. It essentially rewires your mind so that you can be loving and kind with the people around you. But then you need the wisdom of how to practice through your intentions, your speech, and your actions to be loving and kind with the people around you. And that's where the Eightfold Path comes in. Because normally in the unenlightened state, when we lack wisdom and that anger is arising, we go down this path of anger. You've been down that path many times. It's a well-worn path. All the bushes are pushed back. All the stickers are pushed back. You know where that leads. It leads to broken relationships. That's where that anger and bitterness and hostility leads to. So what you're doing with this loving kindness meditation and practicing loving kindness in day-to-day life is you're forging this new path. You're going down this new path. And that's why it's challenging at first, because your mind doesn't want to go down this new path. You got to get your machete out, and you got to cut through the stickers and the bushes and the branches, and you got to create this new path for yourself where you essentially rewire the mind to be loving and kind. And now this old path will overgrow. The stickers and the bushes will all come back. And now your mind won't go down that path anymore. So this situation with the car dealer, however many years ago, I would have never dealt with that the same way. I would have been calling them. I would have been going to see them. I would have been trying to pressure them and force them to do things my way. But you can see this doesn't work. You're just going to be bent out of shape in doing that. So you can go down this new path, and you can create this new path where you can be loving and kind with all people around you. And you're not holding on to this expectation that everybody will do it your way, right? That's not the way the world's going to work. The world's not going to function according to you. It's going to function based on these natural laws. And the way these natural laws function is everybody's doing things in a different way. That is impermanence. So you can rewire this mind to be loving and kind and warm and gentle. When I was growing up as a child, I had a lot of resentment and bitterness towards my mom. Maybe you have some of this too for your parents in some situations. I had all these expectations for my mom. I wanted her to be a certain way. When me and mom were together, it was only a matter of time before fireworks went off. It would explode, because mom would be bitter and harsh and hostile, and she'd throw around the rubber ball of anger, and I'd pick up the rubber ball of anger and I'd throw it around the room, and she'd throw it around the room. Next thing you know, there'd be all this fireworks in the room. And this doesn't work. I kept wanting mom to change. I kept trying to change mom over and over and over again, and it never worked. And then when I became wise to these teachings, I started working on my mind first. And I started doing loving kindness meditation. And I started becoming more and more loving and kind. I started practicing generosity with mom. And now I started functioning through my intention, speech, and actions with loving kindness. Where in the past, if me and mom were talking on the phone and she'd be bitter and harsh and hostile, I'd be bitter, harsh, and hostile right back, right? And it just kept it going. Where after training your mind, when mom was bitter and harsh and hostile with me, I would say things like, "Mom, I love you so much. I know I've been angry and frustrated with you in the past, but I'm choosing not to do that anymore. I'm going to get off the phone and let you think about what you just shared, and we'll talk another time, Mom. I love you. Bye-bye." And sometimes I wouldn't talk to her for 3 or 6 months, right? And then I'd call her back again, and we'd be talking for 2, 3, 4, 5 months, and then she'd be bitter, harsh, and hostile about something. And I'd say, "Mom, I love you so much. I'm going to get off the phone. I really value our relationship, and I'm not interested in being bitter and harsh and hostile with you anymore. I know that I did that in the past, but I'm not going to do that anymore. Take care, Mom. I love you. Bye-bye." And then I would get off the phone. This was a decision that I was making, right? Because if there's anything in your life that you don't particularly care for, cultivate wisdom, make different decisions, and you will experience different results. I didn't care for the anger and hostility and bitterness in my life, so I started making different decisions. I cultivated wisdom, how to train my mind with loving kindness meditation. I started making different decisions, which is I started being loving and kind with the people around me, and I started experiencing different results. Mom started being loving and kind and warm and gentle. I didn't have to change her at all. She chose to change on her own because her son was no longer angry. Her son was no longer bitter and harsh and hostile. When I was bitter, harsh, and hostile, she couldn't see that it was her mind being bitter, harsh, and hostile too, right? So when I transformed my mind and I was loving and kind to her, that's all she was getting from me. She could see she was the one who was angry, and she chose to change her mind on her own. That's the way that each person gets to peace and joy. You need to choose on your own to be loving and kind, and you need to change. You need to choose to change to experience peace and joy. So this loving kindness meditation and choosing to be loving and kind through your intention, speech, and actions in your day-to-day life, that's what's going to transform your mind, and that's what's going to transform your relationships. So the Buddha has specific techniques that teach you the loving kindness meditation and how to be loving and kind through your intention, speech, and actions. And that's something that you would need to learn to really target this anger. So any questions on this one, the anger? No questions here? Okay, let me see if we have anything online. I don't see anything online. Okay, so now we've been talking about craving, that if you get what you want, you get pleasant feelings like happiness, excitement, elation. If you don't get what you want or what you expect, you get painful feelings. And one of the painful things that can arise is anger. You can even get to the point where you like certain people because they're meeting your expectations, and you dislike certain people because they're not meeting your expectations. But that dislike is coming from your own mind because you have these expectations that someone is not meeting. Right? But not everyone's going to meet your expectations. You got to get rid of those expectations. So where all this craving and anger is coming from is coming from this third one, which is ignorance, or the unknowing of true reality. As I mentioned, I don't tend to use this word ignorance because it's a derogatory way. It's a diminishing way to refer to people. A better way to think of this is misunderstanding or confusion or lack of wisdom, that the mind just doesn't understand what it doesn't understand. We will go around the world firmly believing that other people are causing us to be angry. We will believe that until we see the truth and we have the breakthrough to see that it's our own mind, it's our own cravings that are causing this. And when you see that truth and you cultivate that wisdom, it's very empowering. You can have a breakthrough that now you can know once and for all what's causing these feelings. Because I'm sure you've been in knock down, drag out arguments with people where you were trying to adamantly convince them that what they were doing was causing you to be angry, and they have to stop doing what they are doing, or else you're going to continue to be angry. And where this is coming from is your ignorance, the lack of wisdom, the unknowing of true reality. Every single time in your entire life where you've ever been angry or frustrated, it's been your own mind that's been causing this all along. But your mind didn't have the wisdom to understand that. So those other people might have been doing something unwise. Like, I think it's unwise to hold on to someone's money for this long of a period of time. That might be unwise, right? But nonetheless, if our mind is craving permanence, then our mind is going to be causing those feelings, any feelings that are in the mind. So people might have been doing things unwise around you. They might have been disrespectful to you. They might have cheated on you. They might have stolen money from you. But if you were getting angry in those situations, this was your mind craving permanence. And this particular teaching, we're not talking about necessarily what's wise or unwise for other people. What we're talking about is what's causing your mind to keep struggling and having difficulties in the world over and over and over again. Well, it's this craving, this longing, yearning, wanting things to be a certain way, and you can only be happy when you get it your way. And then when this anger is arising, the mind becomes unskillful and pushes people away, be bitter, harsh, and hostile, or put your expectations on people. And where this is all coming from is this lack of wisdom. wisdom, that the mind just doesn't understand what it doesn't understand. It lacks wisdom of something called the three universal truths, the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path, the five precepts, the Brahma Viharas, the natural law of Karma, the seven factors of enlightenment, the 10 fetters, extensive meditation training. It lacks wisdom of all these things. Essentially, when we grew up, we were taught to clean our body. And we know that that's wise. By the time we were 10, 12, 14 years old, we've decided to clean our body every day because we feel more comfortable when we clean the body. But we weren't necessarily taught how to clean our mind when we grew up. In this being who you are, there's a physical body, but there's a mind too. And if you didn't clean your physical body for many weeks or many months or many years, you'd be very uncomfortable walking around having not cleaned the body. Well, if you haven't been cleaning your mind, you're walking around and in certain situations you feel uncomfortable. And that's because you haven't learned how to clean the mind of these pollutions. And when you clean up your mind of these pollutions, that's where more and more peace and more joy is coming into the mind. So this lack of wisdom is going to hinder you from ever being able to clean your mind because you just don't have the wisdom of how to do it. You have the wisdom of how to clean this body, and that's why you can walk around feeling comfortable when you have a clean body. And even when the body's dirty, you're like, no big deal. I can go home and clean this up. I know how to do that. No worries. You're completely fine, right? But if you don't know how to clean your mind, you're going to really have an uncomfortable time in the world, right? You're going to have stress and anxiety. So if you didn't learn how to clean your mind growing up, it's just because you weren't exposed to that wisdom. But now you're in a place that has that wisdom. Here in Thailand, they have this wisdom of how to clean the mind. This is why when you go around Thailand, it's probably pretty peaceful for you here. You might have experienced a little bit of a challenge here or there, but generally, Thai people are quite peaceful and they're quite joyful because they learn how to clean their mind growing up, right? So you can gain the wisdom of how to eliminate craving and anger. Because while we call it craving, anger, and ignorance, it's really because of ignorance that craving and anger continues to exist. If you cultivate wisdom about how to train your mind and how to clean up your mind, you'll eliminate the craving and anger. You'll purify the mind of craving and anger. So do you guys have any questions on this 3 poisons of craving, anger, and ignorance? No questions? Okay. So just to kind of summarize what we've been sharing, I've been talking with you about the 3 poisons or the 3 unwholesome roots or the 3 fires. This is craving, anger, and ignorance, or the unknowing of true reality. The mind just doesn't understand what it doesn't understand. And you cultivate wisdom to be able to transform that, right? There's greed, hatred, and delusion. It's the same thing, just a different way of referring to it. Desire, ill will, and confusion. The antidotes or the solutions or the remedies to this is the 3 wholesome roots: generosity, loving kindness, and wisdom. This is just the opposite. If craving is everything's mine, and there's selfishness, well, the opposite of that is share with other people. Practice generosity. That's going to train your mind to let go. If the unwholesome root is anger and frustration and bitterness and hostility, well, the opposite of that is love and kindness for all beings. But you'll find it challenging to do that when you have craving in your mind. So that's why you need to knock down your cravings so you can work on knocking down your anger, and now you can be more loving and kind with the people around you. And where all this is coming from is the ignorance or the lack of wisdom. So the way you cultivate wisdom is through learning, examining, and investigating the teachings of the Buddha. Understand them intellectually, but then you don't believe them. You reflect on them to independently verify whether they're true or they're false. Then you practice his teachings, integrating them into your day-to-day life, training your mind. This is why there's no rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship in the teachings of the Buddha. There's no amount of water that I can sprinkle on you that's going to help you cultivate wisdom. There's no amount of strings that I can tie on your wrist that is going to help you to cultivate wisdom. You'll see these kinds of things. Even here in Thailand, they have these kinds of things where there's rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, or even prayer that is being taught. But that doesn't cultivate your mind to get rid of these pollutions. It doesn't help you to cultivate the wisdom that you need to eradicate these pollutions out of the mind. So the Buddha never taught any of these rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship or prayer because it doesn't lead to wisdom. You need to cultivate the mind to be able to see the truth of how the world's currently functioning so that now you can make better decisions that leads to better results, right? This is what the Buddha taught. So do you guys have anything you would like to ask? Anything you'd like to ask at this point? No? Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a break for you guys. If there's people who would like to come back and learn some more, after our 20-minute break, I'm going to come back and teach what's called the 5 precepts. These are 5 impactful decisions that you can make either wisely or unwisely, and it's either going to produce wholesome results or unwholesome results for you. If you've been taught that the Buddha taught no killing, no stealing, no sexual misconduct, no lying, and no intoxicants, that's not what the Buddha actually taught. He used much more illuminating language than that, and I'm going to share with you his original words of what he taught on this important topic, and then I'm going to show you how to relate it to modern day decisions that you're making so you can see how to apply his teachings in your day-to-day life. I'm going to be teaching that after our break. We're going to take a lunch break after that. Then when we come back this afternoon around 2 o'clock, I'm going to be teaching walking meditation. This is really good if you have an overactive mind and you find it very challenging to sit and be still in meditation. Walking meditation is really good to kind of get the energy out of the mind, and it's also going to lead to the elimination of craving, that holding on that the mind does. If you would like to start learning these teachings to be able to transform your life and stop having these discontent feelings and end all the difficulties and struggles that you're having, what I suggest you do is to start with our first book. This is called Developing a Life Practice, The Path That Leads to Enlightenment. You can download it from our website for free. Our website is buddhadailywisdom.com. You can get it for free. You can download it. You can take it and go print it if you like. You can get printed versions here by just reimbursing us for the printing cost, or you can order it on Amazon. The first book would be the best place to start. And then we have various courses, classes, and retreats all throughout the month and years that you can take here, or you can take through our live stream, through our YouTube channel. You can watch all of these things. You can even get personal guidance from me where I'll sit down with you, and it's all available at no cost. The only thing that's hindering you from being able to progress towards enlightenment is your own dedication, your own diligence, and applying effort towards training your mind. So if you'd like help, you're welcome to come talk to me, and I'll help you to be able to get plugged in to the resources that you need. So it's now 10 minutes to 11. I'm going to start back up at 10 minutes after 11. So if you're coming back, wonderful. I'll see you after break. If you're not coming back, whatever you choose to do today, have a very lovely and wonderful rest of your day. Perhaps we'll see you next time. Sawadee Kap. Sawadee Kap.